I'm going to share with you some examples of creativity. Example one is it's a fantastic social innovation, which I think is going to have a huge educational payoff in the future. And this is Muhammad Yunus, Nobel Peace Prize winner 2 years ago, and the inventor of the idea of the microcredit. I don't know how many of you know about the microcredit. These are small loans that are given to people in villages, typically $15, $20. The return rate on these investments is much better than loans that typically banks have been giving. And these people use these to set up their own little shop or some kind of a store or something like that. And here's a woman who has received that loan, and you can see the kids behind her. So this is a huge change in the way we think about it, about development in the third world. Interesting thing here is that they found out that it's much smarter to give loans to women than to men. Men tend to drink it up and waste it, while women end up supporting the family, and which is why I think that a family that's supported and nurtured, kids go to school. So in some way, this is a huge educational move. It's grown a great deal. It's grown from around 8 million to over 100 million people across many countries in the world today. A good example of a creative solution. Second example, this is a personal one. This is getting my son to be interested in reading. He's a very sporty kind of guy and stuff like that, and so we'd buy him books and we'd buy him software, and he would do that. And don't get me wrong, it's not that he wouldn't do what we asked him to, but he wouldn't go out and seek it out. He didn't want to read. So I gambled $20 a year for the past 3 years by putting him into an NCAA bracket pool run by Matt here. And one can argue that that's possibly a bad idea. But the result that we are seeing here is that over the past 3 years, I've seen an increased sophistication and knowledge and understanding of sports, his interest in going and reading the newspaper every day, and he has never made me back any money. I'm hoping this year would be the year that I get my repaid on my investment. But what is most interesting is that every morning, he's the first guy out the door getting the newspaper and reading the newspaper. And that's something I think that is invaluable. And that's great, particularly when you're in Michigan and the weather we've been getting. It's him getting out in the snow and getting the newspaper. So that's really important. So that's example 2. Example 3. This is an example I found in a men's room somewhere, and this is in Schiphol Airport. So I'm late over there because I'm traveling to India or something, and I go to the men's room and I go to the toilet and I find there's a bug. I'm like, ooh, this is not good. So I go to the next one and I figure out that, it's not a bug, it's actually a feature. So I took some photographs there, and that's actually, I'll give you a close-up, that's actually a printed bug. So it's a pretty accurately rendered, printed 3D bug that's printed on the toilet bowl. Turns out it's a great design feature, since men, and I'm not suggesting anything here, tend to lead to less spills and a cleaner and easier to maintain public restrooms. I've got something to do with our evolutionary past, I don't know. I don't want to go there. I haven't been to the women's room to check it out, so to know what's going on there. I think I was in enough trouble, as Matt is suggesting here, post 9/11 with a digital camera in an airport. But those are the kinds of sacrifices we make for research. All right, so 3 examples. What's common to all these examples? So here's creativity 1, 2, 3. First, a creative idea is new. It's novel. It's different. It's innovative. It's astonishing. It's surprising. All these kinds of good words. But that's clearly not enough, as this middle fork over there shows that just being unique doesn't mean you're useful. So clearly creativity, when we talk about it, needs to have a component of being effective, of being useful, valuable, important, significant, so on and so forth. And look at the 3 examples that we talked about. Each of those was something novel, but it also was useful. It solved the problem in a different and a new kind of way. But that's not all. Most definitions of creativity, in fact, if you look up, will stick themselves to these 2. But we feel that there is one absolutely integral thing that was missing in most of these definitions, that a creative solution is whole in some way. It's integrated. There's an aesthetic integration, a completeness, a beauty and elegance to a creative solution, which makes it really powerful. And when you think about wicked problems, you cannot break them down into little parts and solve each part. There has to be a holistic component to that, and I think a creative solution captures that. So we say it's not just new, but it's the new. And what do we mean by that? We mean it needs to be novel, effective, and whole. Novel, effective, and whole. That's a nice little acronym. Matt sent me a message again. And he says, well, creativity is about this big aha moment. Special people are creative, Picassos and the Einsteins of the world. But I think a lot of research shows that he is wrong. That really, creativity is nothing but variations on a theme. That you take an idea and you tweak it. And you tweak it and you tweak it, and then you end up with something very new. Let's look at the example of the Rubik Cube. All right? Let's do some, and I've done this in workshops where you have students actually come up with variations. So I'll not do that today for things of time. But here are some superficial variations that one can do. For instance, you can change the stickers from being square to circular. You can make a keychain out of it. You can put jewels on it. You can actually make it for Braille so that blind people can solve it. And my favorite, which is the all-red Rubik Cube. Took me not much time to figure that one out, so I thought that was good. But here's another variation that one can make. Why is it 3 by 3 by 3? So some people made these. 2 by 2 by 2, 4 by 4 by 4, 5 by 5 by 5. Right? Then somebody asked the question, why this repeating 3 by 3 by 3? Why n by n by n? So they came up with these ones. It's a 2 by 3 by 2. And so on, and variations, so forth. So you can see, and if you go to twistypuzzles.com, you can get over 1,000 variations. So we just picked up a few from there. Now, the Rubik Cube is a cube, which is a platonic solid. So somebody asked the question, can we make it out of other shapes which are platonic solids? So there we go. You have your dodecahedron and your icosahedrons and your tetrahedrons, all of which have been made into puzzles. Then somebody went and asked the question, why restrict ourselves to 3 dimensions? And so they made a software hypercube. It's a Rubik Cube in 4 dimensions. I do not recommend that you play it. I tried, it took me, I think, 15 minutes just to figure out how I could make a move. So I don't really strongly recommend that. But one thing about all these examples, I think all of you would be thinking that these seems like obvious moves in this problem space. You go from 2 by 2, you go to 3 by 3 by 3. Now I want to share an example with you of game designer, puzzle designer Scott Kim, where he looked at one aspect which he called simultaneous motion, which is that when you twist the Rubik Cube, certain pieces which are behind come up to the front, and pieces that are in the front go back, which means you have to keep thinking what's happening back there. So he said, what would a game look like if I just give the idea of simultaneous motion and remove everything else? And so he came up with this game called Double Maze. And what happens in this, that you have to get those 2 white balls to specific locations within each maze. The problem is when you make a move on this ball, the other ball moves at the same time. So which means, again, if you look at this game, would you see a connection to a Rubik Cube? It is a completely different thing. But what he did is that he took one element of that and tweaked that and pushed it to its limit. So in that sense, creativity is nothing but tweaking knobs. The idea being that you have the right knobs to tweak. So, you with me, Matt? Oh, okay. So I guess I need to recap here a little bit. So to recap, we live in a new media ecology, okay, where these 3 things and context are very important and they lead to wicked problems. We know that standard approaches don't work, that there is no royal road to teaching, that creativity is the only solution, and we now know that creativity needs to be, a creative solution is novel, effective, and whole, and we get there not through magic, but through a playful process of tweaking knobs. All right? So the big question then becomes, what are teachers and teacher educators to do? Where do the knobs come from?